Welcome. Thank you for joining us. We're here with our lovely panel, and we are here because the category is transgender employment, and we are going to have a discussion. But before we do that, gonna have some introductions. My name is Lita Nasiri-Vala. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist, working primarily in private practice, but also doing additional work in terms of community organizing and consulting. And let's get to know some of our other panelists today.
Hello, my name is Travis Nwogu. I'm a registered nurse here working in this region. I'm excited to be here because I do believe that trans visibility is really important, especially in the workplace. And I'm excited to talk about it. I've noticed that there's been some changes, and I do want to kind of understand others' experiences as well as kind of reflect on my own to see how to improve the quality of our inclusivity into the workplace in general at large.
Hello, my name is Jojo Danielle Figueroa. Currently, I am self-employed, and I thought it was important to be here because I do see a huge significance in job employment and career paths for transgender people and the inclusion of that. I also just thought that I could be here today so that I can give a face and a voice so that, we can all just share our stories and be able to be a part of something important.
Hello, my name is Drusilla. I consider myself really a Jill of all trades and currently a homemaker. And I decided to do this because I just realized that different voices need to be heard from different people and show that we are different while seeking the same thing and are skilled and able to do it.
Welcome, everyone, and glad to have everyone here in the panel. Thank you for joining us. We want this opportunity to hear your experiences and what you have to share. So we're going to have a discussion here, and thank you for agreeing to participate. So at times I'm going to ask questions, but feel free to share whatever you like, whatever you want people to know. Maybe a place we could start is the different experiences you've had with employment, and pick one that you want to share because there's some nugget of information or knowledge that you want to pass on to others in the community. So
I guess I can go first.
Definitely.
So
yeah.
When I started to transition, which is recent, I just started taking hormones about 11 months ago. And I remember I used to be working for a couple, and I was a caregiver for about 6 years. And we had such a good relationship. They were always there for me, very supportive. And once I realized the decision I needed to make for myself, my only thought was, how are they going to react? Especially when they start to see me and my changes. So for me, I had a lot of anxiety. I had a lot of fears because, although we had such a good connection with something so different, you never know their mindset until you finally are able to talk with them about it. So I think after the 5th month, I finally decided to say something, and it actually just kind of happened because I was kind of being emotional, probably the hormones. But my client had asked me, is something wrong? Like, are you okay? And that's when it just came out. And I can tell at first she was a little taken back, but at the same time, like I said, they've always been so supportive, and right away we're like, this is okay. It's different, it's new, but it's okay. And which led me to also tell my the other client, they were a couple. So for me, it was just that, not full understanding just yet, but understanding that there is a difference, that there is a change coming. And although I don't work for them anymore, I did think afterwards, like, gosh, how is it going to be now that I have to start looking for something different, especially that I'm going through my changes. So that's been on my mind a lot more lately. the fears and the stigma that comes with it. So that's what I'm kind of going through right now. Yeah.
So it sounds like even in the absence of anything indicating, there would be a downside to come out and share that piece of information, you were already preparing and bracing yourself.
Right.
For
I
how they would take it.
was very much ready to lose my job. So I was like, you know what, this is happening. I have to do this for myself. And unfortunately, it's a risk that I had to take. So yeah, in order to tell them and let them know what's going on before they were to see.
Yeah, and I imagine a lot of our viewers are probably resonating with that experience of just the sad truth that a lot of us in the community have to kind of brace for that. Does anyone else have anything similar on that experience that they wanted to share, specifically on that, or otherwise share what your own experience has taught you that you want to pass along?
I definitely genuinely resonate with your experience as far as bracing for that impact of how is this going to be moving forward. I personally have felt that I feel like a lot of other people can also probably relate that it's really hard for myself as a person to just jump in head first. I always feel like I have to test a lot of waters and ask a lot of questions and not just brief them, brief myself as far as how I would feel with them understanding or knowing that something different is going to be happening. For myself in my current workplace, I kind of acquiesced to just living in the same status that I was placed in, just kind of continuing with that status quo because I didn't want to make my work environment uncomfortable. Because I didn't know how my changes were going to start appearing. I didn't know because they hadn't started yet, even though I did start the transition process when I got this job. The changes weren't so apparent so abruptly, just starting off with, and they perceived me as female, and they interacted with me as female. And even though it didn't resonate, I still maintained because I was still able to build a friendly connection because that's just me as a person. They were talking to me still without that understanding that I'm not who they say that I am, but I am who I am when communicating, sorry. And for me, I still felt that it was too hard to just brace for that impact. So I wasn't able to just yet. I felt that maybe later I might be able to, and I feel like that's a big fear that a lot of people tend to have is maybe later I can. Sooner than later, I'm going to do it. I'm going to get there soon. But you don't really know how soon that is, and the fact that you were able to self-actualize in that moment for yourself, even though it kind of happened just all of a sudden. It's like,
Right.
I'm taking this opportunity now to really embrace this part of me, and I feel like a lot of people, including myself, have a problem with getting there. I feel personally that I need opportunities that just kind of present for myself to kind of wedge my story in, or myself into, that I can find an easier way to just kind of navigate the discomfort of the conversation, or the discomfort of them like seeing me differently, having to adjust to them seeing me differently. It's not just them, it's also myself, how I would feel about them just adjusting to me differently. I've felt that because of how I started where I'm working now, that it just is that I am this other person. I felt like I have to keep it that way. And I was telling myself that, okay, for sure, the future job that I get into, that's where I'm going to start. And I'm hopeful that that's the case. But as of right now, I do feel that strong discomfort in jumping into a new perspective or a new persona for myself, to actually liberate myself and be my authentic self, I guess. So I really value that you were able to meet that for yourself. And I would like to be more like that moving forward. I genuinely believe that just taking that first step, doing it once, is something. There's a lot of power in just that initial step. And I feel like once you feel comfortable doing it the first time, you might just be comfortable doing it the next time and continuously doing that until you feel much more confident in maintaining that. You get used to it and it starts to be more real to you as you start to see it more often.
Yeah. And can I add on to that too?
Definitely.
I think you made such a good point, Travis, is that I also feel that I kind of like, with now not being at the job that I was waiting for an opportunity to kind of present itself, because it's just, you don't know, and you're starting from the beginning, and whether it's a job or a career, and you don't know what they're going to think, you don't know how they're going to treat you, you don't know what they're going to say, and even though they make nice to face, to your face, there's always a behind the scenes. So I just wanted to emphasize that, on how much that, I've thought the same way, like at times where I'm just like, do I wait for an opportunity? Like, how do I take my next opportunity? So that is something I'm still trying to work on as well. Yeah.
And I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I actually, with both of you, I recognize those stories, but it was a long time ago. My journey has been long and very slow. I actually came out in 1999. And even back then, you couldn't catch me outside of heels and makeup. And it was just, that was my life. And so the transitioning was just a slow over time. But the whole me saying, please call me, well, at the time it was Serena, but I go by Drusilla now. But I had a couple coworkers that were okay with it, but this was in Tennessee. So the rest of them, obviously, I couldn't get to do it. And this was 2008. So it wasn't until I got here that I was able to just embrace who I am. And that's actually, it made it easier to be who I am. Only issue I really see is this when coming here and with employment, trying to understand between them and me, understanding each other, understanding the trauma that I'd been through, and I'm trying not to project that onto them, but that's still very difficult. And that's been what has been causing issues with my employment here, is my own trauma and coming between me and these managers and them not understanding that I have this trauma.
Yeah, I think definitely important to both recognize that milestone or that turning point where we reveal, I don't even like the term coming out, because we know who we are.
Yeah.
It's like, we're trusting you now. We think you're ready for this. And so that being a milestone of sorts. And then another thing to also go through the experience and, you go into work, we all have to work. We're just going to go do our job and what we agreed upon, and how just getting a job doesn't mean, oh, you're set. Like the importance of having the experience in a workplace, which is a place of hierarchy where we have to satisfy supervisors, managers, eventually, in order to maintain our job, to demonstrate that we're worthy. And so the traumas that we've had in other workplace experiences, the effects of that come into this new place of employment. And it sounds like one of the things we all agree that we wish is that supervisors, managers would be aware of that and recognize that, maybe even inquire about it. I don't know. Is that too much if a supervisor starts inquiring, right? Because some things might be considered personal. Just any thoughts on that?
Me personally, I would actually like to have a one-on-one opening conversation with a manager. Like, that just kind of clears the air. We know where we stand. There's no lines being crossed, and it helps. I've had that before, and it really helped.
Okay. And can I ask you just a follow-up question about that?
Yeah.
In your experience, was that initiated by you or by the manager?
Um, I honestly don't know. We just got really comfortable with each other and it just
Okay.
opened up a dialogue. So I
Okay.
don't know.
So that's an example of a question with binary options, but you pick neither because those aren't the only two answers. Sometimes two humans can develop trust over time and find themselves just opening up and talking, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. I like how you said that sometimes, because it's right. It's sometimes when we can experience situations just like that. But I think also it's so hard because when you mentioned on having that like open dialogue, I feel like sometimes when employers or, bosses or however you want to refer to it, by doing that, they can actually, in their own way, at times label us as like, oh, so this may not be a reason that we'd want to hire somebody, as much as we would love to have that thought that we could trust into them, or that they would be understanding. I actually one time experienced something somewhat like that. And I was working at a retail store. And when I was there, I was also experiencing a lot of emotions because I was never able to identify as who I felt I was and who I knew I was. And with that, not being able to feel like you can speak to them because it may ruin, I guess you would say your reputation with them, or, like I said, label you as, oh, no, now we have to be aware of this person. And do we really want to risk having that person when there are people they would consider, more mentally stable or, better workers just because they aren't experiencing mental illness or, anything like that. So I had a talk with one of the bosses and they had mentioned to me like, hey, you've been missing a lot of work and it's starting not to look good. And when I was trying to express like, my depression and, what I was going through, they kind of shrugged like, well, yeah, I know and I understand, but you really got to just, pull it together. So not really comforting words, and made me feel like, oh gosh, like if I don't get it together, which, especially when you don't have the proper help or the right help at that time, to be able to be mentally and emotionally okay, it really puts you in a bit of a frenzy, like, oh my gosh, like I gotta do good, or if not, I'm gonna lose my job. So it's really hard. I think it can be, I guess, good or bad thing, but I think those are one of the reasons that I would consider it to be like a negative. So
Yeah, definitely. And even in a circumstance in your example, as you gave, is trying to balance out how much to share and how much to reveal. There could be ramifications down the line if, promotion opportunity might come up. Will they remember this? Will they think of this?
exactly.
And so I think your point also brings up how interwoven all the type of resources that trans and non-binary folks need.
Right.
Is there accessible quality mental health care available?
Mm-hmm.
Is there medical care? Is there, other things that can really challenge us or just, challenge dysphoria, make dysphoria just be really that much, more difficult. And a colleague of mine, so I'm borrowing something from Aidan Olson Kennedy. I heard him talk in a presentation about gender dysphoria as conceptualizing it as like a white noise or just like a noise in the background, and that sometimes it gets really louder.
Right.
How are you going to do your job? That can affect, your quality of work and can appear to supervisors and managers and stuff like, oh, you're not really trying, like what's going on here, or your quality has gone down, and so definitely has to be a struggle.
Yeah. And that's a good point too. Like a lot of them go straight towards like, hey, you're not doing your job. It's like, let's step back. Like, let's ask the question, hey, are you okay? Like, is everything all right? But no, they at times don't want to come off that way to make it seem like, hey, like I want to experience what you're experiencing right now. Because I think sometimes people can also start to feel what you start to express. So like managers can start to really think like, okay, I'm stressed out now because I don't know if this worker is going to keep going, or if, like as far as like being able to work here, or what am I going to have to do? That's definitely, yeah, where I'm thinking about that as well. So.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm curious if that has inspired any other thoughts on the work experience that you've had so far.
As far as that goes, I I'm going to be a little contradictory to that, and it's not anything that you said because of what you said. It's because the employers are wrong in that sense that mental illness is a disability, and that's disability discrimination.
Correct.
So that's how I feel about that.
I completely agree with you. And to even elaborate on that more, it just goes to show how sometimes people don't want to see it as what it is.
Yes.
They want to make it seem like you're just using an excuse, or you have, or put your issues behind you, It's
Right.
just,
Oh, that's so easy.
yeah.
I'm glad your parents loved you.
Yeah, exactly. And, everybody has a different upbringing, and if we were to just as people in general, just remember that, I feel like everything would run so much smoother.
Absolutely. And I think you bring up the point of culture, and there can be cultural differences in the workplace, but that each one of us, have been shaped by the cultures that we were raised within, whether it was our nuclear family, chosen family, and whatnot. I wonder if any of you think that you can note where culture has kind of intersected with your experience of trying to find employment. Because yes, we're definitely here to talk about how gender diversity influences employment, but we are not individuals. We're not just trans people. We are intersections. So I'm just wondering if you want to bring some attention to that as well for any of you. And you don't have to as well. It's totally fine.
I feel like for me, I've never really experienced any issues with that. I guess that comes with maybe I did actually do really good on my interviews. So that was during the time, right? As I said before, I just started transitioning now. So that could be a whole different story now. Not only am I a transgender woman, but now I'm also looked at as a Latina transgender woman. And, also the funny thing is too, I grew up very, I would say Americanized. So my Spanish is very poor. It's very, I wish it was better. And I definitely try, but, that also made me feel like I didn't really have a culture I can kind of go back on as well. So.
What about any cultural values that you picked up, you noticed around you, maybe family members and their relationship with work, for instance?
Very hard workers for sure, which is why they would constantly drill on me that I don't work so hard. Yeah, I was going through things always, unfortunately. I suffered with depression for many years and a lot of anxiety, and it was never really understood growing up. And it's also very common in, Hispanic culture that we just don't see that. We don't identify it as that. It's more like you're just being lazy, get up and go do what you got to do. You're making excuses, go do what you got to do. And, but it was so much more than that.
Yeah.
So you kind of made you feel, not only were you going through that, but then you feel like you're crazy because people are telling you it's not real, or you're not really feeling that way, So.
Yeah. Just not doing enough. Or,
exactly.
kind of like that supervisor who's hey, you need to do more. So,
Yes.
So noticing how those messages that we've grown up with could also influence the way we develop a relationship with employment and work and
Definitely.
our roles. So, yeah. Any other thoughts on culture and culture's influence on employment experience?
I agree. I do believe that culture plays a big part in the person's upbringing as far as how they will articulate and interact in their workplace. Myself, I grew up in a culture that was they really kind of made it significant for us to understand that having a pristine job is really important as far as representing yourself, your family, as well as your community. So the culture essentially puts a lot of that pressure and stress for you to do really well in the workplace, do really well in a higher position. Trying to navigate finding those higher positions is really difficult. In general, finding a job is difficult. I get that. but then acquiescing to, like, I guess, deciding to get that right career in the medical field as a lawyer, or as a really high-end business person, where people are going to constantly be looking at you, and constantly be listening to you to see how you will present and basically portray yourself in that realm. It basically makes you feel as if you have to fit in, like you have to be a certain way, act a certain way. It makes it a little bit harder to feel like you have the luxury of being yourself, and therefore you have to kind of stay in your lane when it comes to the managers and the employees and things like that. And have found it a little bit difficult to speak to managers about what it is that we're experiencing. I find that if I hadn't had an experience with a manager that was as amicable, it would make this process a lot smoother. But I haven't really found that I could navigate coming out to just that manager alone, to have that understanding of how I'm going to be interacting with these people at work to be smooth, I guess. And I guess similarly to JoJo, whenever I have experienced that stress of navigating my own career path or my own process with transitioning and anything like that, it's not quite understood that it's not really validated as far as what they see you as and what you can bring. If they don't see the output that you're providing, then what you're capable of doing is not attributed, I guess. So as far as, currently I'm a registered nurse, and I feel like there's a lot of people looking at me to do a good job. There's a lot of people that I meet every single day that I have to make feel comfortable, because that's my job. I have to make them feel comfortable in their time of need. And if I'm not able to do that, if they're not comfortable with me being how I am, how they have seen me, then I'm not able to give them the best quality of care that I can. And it's like I had felt that I had to get into this position based on my culture and how I was brought up. And I'm totally happy in this position. I'm very happy to be a part of it. But it has essentially pushed me into this environment where I have to accommodate and I have to perform. And it's hard. It's like to act in that capacity to present and represent myself for not just myself, but my family is really difficult.
So may I just add, and maybe even in a way summarize, you were talking about some themes like the concerns about ruffling feathers.
Thank you.
And how that could put, you at certain, feelings of risk around your performance. But then there's also how your culture influenced you. There's this element of that you felt it's important to have a career that has prestige associated with it. And the one that you happen to choose, the career itself really, and I'm speaking about this from an outsider because I'm not a nurse, but there's a lot of accommodating people, right? You accommodate patients, you make sure they're at ease, that their needs are being met. A doctor's not always available, so you're the contact person. And so how even the type of employment you might have might be more amenable to a supportive environment versus a more just like demanding environment where, as Drusilla, you mentioned earlier about the word disabilities, which is something I wanted to bring up in general anyway, beyond mental health causing disability, but just to what degree some jobs really give very little room and how us as, trans or non-binary folks, we need to have that space. We need to, like, life's a little bit tougher. So, but yeah, anything else anyone wants to see, Drusilla?
Yeah, actually, this goes back, it's on that, and it goes back to the culture thing is like culture that I was brought up in, and the culture that, I'm born and raised in Columbus, Ohio. And it's more of I say what I mean, and it's no sugar. We don't really sugarcoat it. So when I get out here, I come off abrasive, and that's one culture issue that I see. And then the other one, touching on the expectations and all of that, one of my mottos in life is that I am more than my expectations, or more than my potential.
Yeah.
Like, if you only see me as my potential, then we're going to have a problem.
Got it. So you demand that people value you.
Yes.
And that's really important, that, just handing you, here's a job so-and-so, is not good enough. Yeah. And I think definitely there is something where historically our community has had to settle, or has at least felt they had to settle for things. But we see with more representation, even as I opened, today's session about recognizing ballroom and categories, and how a lot of the careers that were desired and dreamt of many years ago, they couldn't get those jobs. So what do? They dressed up and performed them and competed, and just think how beautiful that is. I sometimes do think of just how fortunate I am to be employed in private practice as a marriage family therapist. Is just like, I wonder if I am the dreams that my ancestors had for me, for our community, Absolutely. So we've talked quite a bit about different experiences around employment. I have noticed that we're talking about situations that we've been in. I wonder if anyone wants to add anything about seeking employment, maybe the job search, and maybe, even contrasting maybe sometime in the past, because we see how much technology has influenced, the world, and just what does looking for a job look like today, and how does it differ? And
I have definitely seen an improvement, at least as far as living in Northern California. I'm unsure about elsewhere because I just have been looking for employment here because I live here. But I have noticed and acknowledged that there have been some improvements to more inclusivity as far as identifying how we identify. It's not just that single, are you male, female anymore. It's what is your gender, and they list male, female, other, trans male, trans female, and you have the ability to put something else, even if it's other. It's like very expansive now, and they even ask questions about sexuality as far as what you identify with that as well. And I definitely think that in the past, those things didn't exist, those boxes didn't exist, and I would find myself thinking, okay, well, on my license it says this, but when you see me, it'll be this. So which way do I go with this? And I've always felt, okay, I guess I should just stick to the status quo, because how I'm going to register with this job is how I'm going to register for my driver's license, I guess. Because they do look at those documents as far as registering you for that job anyways. So I understand, like, when I read like the dialogue where it's like telling you, please identify yourself. This is completely like not going to affect your employment or whatsoever. It's just for demographic purposes only. You don't have to fill it out, but we encourage you to. And I've always felt like, I think that it's important that, more workplaces should be aware that there's more than just this binary in existence. I've always kind of felt, okay, if I do put this, what if, even though they're saying it's not going to affect my employment, it actually does affect my employment? And that's always kind of made me nervous to submit to that. But I have noticed that it's been changing, and I think that that inclusivity is going to make applying for jobs a lot easier for people, hopefully moving forward.
Absolutely, absolutely. Having the options to be able to reflect accurately to the potential employer, like, this is who I am. And I think it could be a big, long discussion in of itself. We might go into the importance of then having access to adjusting documents, because that is so ingrained. Again, and I heard you use the term status quo, and I think a lot of us here aren't happy with the status quo. We want to change it. So we want to make it different. So yeah, I'm going to just take a moment and just see what are some other things that we haven't touched on today that part of your employment narrative, whether it's looking for work or places you've worked, that you just kind of want to share with the audience. And just kind of, again, we're here to share our stories to hopefully give others a better experience.
I think one thing I wanted to share, because I've kind of been thinking about it since I've got here, but the thought that how unfortunate it is to, for me, as far as what I was thinking, is that, not really hearing about trans people more. So not really being able to put myself in a place of where I can work. I think sometimes, growing up, we're always told, oh, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? Right. But they never, there's never a representation of it. Or I wouldn't say never, but I would say that you hardly hear about it. And up until recently, yeah, I mean, I think it's been like, what we talked about before, being able to now identify yourself the way that you would like to, whether it's at a job application or even school. One thing I actually kind of wanted to tie into there too, as far as with documents and stuff, I wanted to mention right now, I'm kind of in my in-between stage. So it can be very confusing. It's very confusing because I'm in the waiting process, but I'm also like so nervous because I am who I am, but still have that fear of identifying myself, even though it looks different or doesn't match up just yet. So with that, while I'm in school, I still, have those thoughts of, us being trans people, it's just being able to have that representation is huge. Being able to know we have a place and to know that we can actually have a career and, see yourself not just, trying to find a job, but actually being able to know that you can accomplish that, without having that stigma or having that, just that main thought of like, am I going to get this job because of who I am?
Yeah, I think what you're really inspiring in me is to think, like, if we had a way to connect people in community, maybe
Right.
even link people up for mentorships.
Right.
Maybe if it's a path we want to take and we're not on it, maybe we're just working some typical job just, to maintain,
Mm-hmm.
something that some people aspire for those things, that's fine, but maybe it's not our first choice. But to find someone else who maybe is, a therapist, for instance, is, a nurse or doctor, engineer, and just to be able to have conversations and just kind of pick their brain. And so I just want to thank you all for being here today, and figure maybe in closing, we do know that there's a lot of viewers right now who are figuring out their ways of allyship and how to ensure that workplace environments are, gender affirming, inclusive, just accommodating spaces to make sure people in our community can feel like, hey, we can take a shot, we can apply, or we can, maybe believe that we can get a job, we can dream, right? So if there was any kind of little suggestions or just nuggets that you just want to just give them a little something, what might that be? And what do you think, you'd want them to know?
Currently, where I work in a clinic, and I have seen representation there, and she is the reason why I felt that the system is changing, it's progressing. It's that she makes it clear that with her visibility and her ability to be who she is in the field that we work in together, more accessible to individuals like me who are thinking, okay, I'm just going to start transitioning now. How is this going to affect my career moving forward? How is this going to affect me looking for work moving forward? So it was through her that I genuinely believed that I could have a shot at starting to work as my authentic self. And as I had mentioned before, with all of the jobs starting to include other diverse questions as far as how people identify as themselves, I think that those are reasons why we should feel more inclined to try. And I would encourage others to go for it, because it's not to say that we can't, even if we have to pioneer the process. I do genuinely believe that it's a slow moving train, but it's steadily moving, and it's going to get better as long as we continue to represent ourselves and each other, and be there as ourselves and each other for integrating this community into the rest of the community, or the rest of the work environment, the rest of the world in general. And I've noticed as well that it's a lot more significant how much training there is. There's always a sexual harassment training. Everybody's always doing that, but there's starting to be more gender inclusive training as far as how to interact with coworkers, how to interact with patients, how to interact with people who are identified differently than the norm. And I think that we should be encouraged to try again. We should just be encouraged to try.
Definitely. Trying is big, and having visible folks hired. So hiring trans people is what I heard.
Yes, hiring trans people is so important.
Yes.
So important.
Yes. Others.
Basically, you touched on everything. Like, it was just hiring trans people. I don't even feel like I get a shot. And or when I first got here, it seems like it might be getting better, but of course I haven't really tried since the pandemic. Kind of just been like, oh, let him take care of everything right now.
We understand. We understand. It's hard.
Yeah. Any thoughts for our viewers again?
I just think it's kind of like that thing that we say is, we're human, and we all have different capabilities. And just because we're, different doesn't mean that we aren't capable. So, yeah.
Okay, well, I'd like to answer that question of my own, just to say that there's actually certain skills and abilities that trans people bring that other people do not bring. So just bringing trans people in, it will enrich the environment, and it will just make it a safer space for people of all genders and just diversity. We didn't even have time to really get into disability and the role that disability plays, and people trying to, complete their job performance, whatever they need to meet, the criteria. But just having that level of diversity, it just makes it just this environment where people can really feel seen and heard and understood. And yes, it's work. It's not supposed to be your social event. It's not supposed to be, but just imagine, seriously, if you can imagine waking up on a Monday and just being excited to being able to go to work. That's what I want. That's what I want for all of us. And so, yeah. So thank you all for being here, for contributing and participating. And wish you the best too in work.
Thank you, likewise.
And if there's more needed as a community we need to do, let's come together, let's talk about it. Maybe we come up with some solutions to some of these things instead of waiting around, right? We can wait, but we can also take action.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Completely agree.
And with the closing of this panel, just want to acknowledge and give thanks to all the people who've contributed, Office of LGBTQ Affairs and, the audio video technical team, just so many people who've helped put this together and just really see the value of our community And with that, please stay with us because shortly you're going to hear some more testimonials from community members about their experiences in seeking employment or maintaining employment. Thank you again.
My name is Micah. My pronouns are they, them, and currently I work in elder care.
My name is Aaliyah White. My pronouns are her, her, and hers. I work in marketing.
Mi nombre es Nancy y mi pronombre es ella y soy chef.
So my name is Tiffany. I go by she and her, and my profession is makeup artist.
The current job I'm in was the first job I have been fully out at. And I would say overall management has been really great about it. Sort of when I told them my name, my pronouns, the best reaction I had was, cool, how do I spell it for your name tag? And I was like, wonderful, this is all I wanted. I did not want to discuss this more.
Some positive stories are just seeing, doing makeup and having somebody that maybe identifies as transgender or non-binary coming in and seeing, maybe me working there. It just makes them feel a lot more comfortable in asking questions, and they're not afraid, because I feel a lot of people do come in, and I have seen it where, they get looks or they get dirty looks or not wanting to get helped. And I've even have people, can you go help her? Or can you go help that person? And I don't know if that's because, I'm also transgender, or if they just don't want to help them. It could be a little bit of both, but I don't mind helping anybody. And because I love making people feel better about themselves, and, especially transgender people or anybody who's a little bit different. I want them to feel comfortable, coming in and, needing help.
Mi mensaje para los empleadores es que crean en la persona, no en la apariencia. Somos unas personas transgénero, pero también sabemos trabajar, también sabemos luchar. No juzgar a un libro solo por ver su portada. Tratar de mirar, de irse al fondo y ver cómo es la persona.
The advice that I would have for number one, employers is, as I stated before, is to educate yourself. There's so much education out here nowadays that there wasn't, 10, 15 years ago. You can, like I said, go online. You can also, there's so many centers, like here in San Jose in particular, let's just use that as an example. They have the Valley Medical Center here, the Gender Medical, which you can go there and, you should seek, if you're an employer, you should seek out different ways to educate yourself. So that would be my advice for employers, to just educate yourself, and if you have an open mind and you're willing for that education, you'll find it.
Go to trans people, try not to make a big deal of things. I know that sounds simple, but it's not. And then also just be open to change.
I would say some advice that I have for employers would be to don't be afraid. Don't be intimidated by us. And if in doubt, ask questions. Don't be afraid to ask. Be respectful, but don't be afraid to ask, because I feel that's how we are going to help each other. Let me help you help me, and just do some research. It doesn't hurt to do a little bit of research, just in all aspects, just so you're prepared if somebody does come in and they are transgender, a little bit different than what you're used to.
One thing I would like to share is that being a person of trans experience and being a Black person, I want to see more policies to protect our Black and Latin people of color, because in the past past 2 years, there's been so many murders when it comes to us. And I feel like we need more policies to protect our Black and Latin trans community. So that's what I want to see. I want to see more policy in order to protect us so that we can go into the workplace and we can be empowered to have more development in business and in these different careers that we want. We need protection. We need more policies and people and allies to stand with us.
Mis compañeras, para mis hermanas transgender, pues quien da respeto tiene derecho a exigir respeto y que seamos tratadas como cualquier persona, porque somos humanos.
For employees to never give up, to know that you are worthy to have a job. Also, don't let any negativity or any pushback stop you from doing what you want to do, whatever job that is, because there's always going to be a little bit of a fight when it comes to our community, because we're kind of in a stage right now where we're in growth. So in order to grow, there's going to be some obstacles that you have to go through. So I would just say, just stick to your guns and go out there and go for it.
For me, transgender economic empowerment has a lot to do with being able to be yourself and not have fear of either, ideally, people not treating you any differently, not having fear that suddenly your workplace is going to become unsafe if you be who you are. And I know there's like legal protections around it, but things can go from being a wonderful workplace to a place where you go home feeling gross at the end of the day. So I think it has to do with being able to just be yourself and not have pushback, not have to answer questions, not have to be treated any differently, and know that you can move up and you can achieve your career goals and not have to make your gender the spotlight for everybody and be the one who answers all the questions.
Para mí significa, pues, tener un trabajo permanente. Para mí es lo primordial, porque teniendo un trabajo permanente es la única manera que yo puedo disponer de mis necesidades. Para mí es algo importante.
Transgender economic empowerment means hope, and there is, hope for us. Persons that identify as transgender, non-binary, and there's help, it's helping.
Transgender economic empowerment means to me seeing trans folks, individuals, in every different walk of life when it comes to business. I should be able to go to a grocery store and see trans people in management as well as regular workers. I should be able to go to a coffee shop. I should be able to go to an auto dealer. I should be able to see trans people in every different walk of life, not just one walk of life. That's what trans economic empowerment means to me. It's seeing trans people everywhere in the world.